determine the equation of the axis of symmetry. Again, the axis of symmetry is always the x-coordinate of your vertex, so it would sure be nice if we had our vertex, but it's in general form again. So changing to standard form, again, I have this on my formula sheet, but this form tells me my vertex. That would sure be helpful. So what do we have to do? We need to get that a value out by itself. So that's where I'm going to factor out a -2. Oh, do we have a problem here? We have a 5. This is like more unlucky than the 13 from before. We're going to have a fraction, right? If you can't pull it out naturally, pulling out a -2 is going to be like dividing. And I leave my space, and I leave my space. And the best thing that you can start to tell yourself, because now we've done a fair bit of fractions in this course, you did fractions in grade 10, at some point, yes, you've got to go like, oh, fractions, it's going to be more mental math, but at some point you got to realize it's not actually harder. You should know your fraction rules, and we're actually just having to go through the steps. It's maybe a little bit more annoying, but more annoying doesn't mean it's harder. Okay? Right? It's not hard to take out the garbage. It's more annoying to take out the garbage if you have to do every single room in your house. That's more annoying, but not harder. Does it take longer? Yes. But taking longer doesn't mean it's necessarily harder. So we have a fraction. Well, this fraction tells us that's our hint. The idea is the same. Do you know how we always did a half? Can you multiply that by a half? No problem. 5/2 times 1/2 is 5/4. And if that's 5/4, we always know that this number in the first green space is if you squared that. Is squaring 5/4 hard? No. 5/4 times 5/4 is going to be 25/16 added. But what have we actually done? That gets multiplied by 2. How do you multiply a fraction by 2? It's like 2/1, right? You'd multiply the top by 2. Okay? So we've actually subtracted -50/16. So we would need to add, and I'm not reducing it on purpose. Can you see that you could reduce that to 25/8? Perfect. I'll do that in the next step. I have to add those together. They're fractions. Not harder, but definitely takes longer and more annoying. How do we add fractions? I need a common denominator. So I'm going to need to change my -3 to -24/8, and my 50/16, I'm going to reduce that now to 25/8. How do you add fractions? You have to get your denominators the same, which we do. We add our numerators. So now, -2. X minus 5/4 squared plus 1/8. Now that it's in standard form, can you see that your vertex is at 5/4, 1/8, and our axis of symmetry is a vertical line, so it's always x equals, and it will go through the x-coordinate of your vertex, so it will be at x equals 5/4. They didn't give you much room on this one, did they? At the bottom. Question?
When you do your p as like the x-coordinate, why don't you take the negative with it?
Why don't I take the negative with it? It's a great question, and it's all, the answer to that question is based in the original equation. See how it's x minus p? So I have x minus, p has to be just the 5/4.
Oh.
Okay? And what you're going to find is probably an easier way of thinking about it is whatever you have here, the p is the opposite. If it was plus, then it's negative. If it's negative, then it's positive. Because if it's plus, I have a negative in the formula. The only way I could add is if I would subtract a negative. Yes. Where did the 24 over 8 go? These are like terms.
Where did it come from?
It came from,
How?
I have, I'll do it over here in purple. I have negative 3 over 1.
Mm-hmm.
I want a denominator of 8 so that I could add with this one. Because if I add fractions, I need a common denominator.
Yeah, well, you could do 3 over 1 plus 25 over 8.
Okay.
And that's going to be minus 3.
How do I do 3 over 1 plus 25, negative 3 over 1 plus 25 over 8?
The denominator will be 8.
The denominator has to be 8, right?
Like when you're adding the denominator with 8.
Yes, so that's how I got the negative 24.
8 divided by 1 would be 8 times 3.
24.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what we needed to do.
Okay.
Okay? Is it more mental math when we have fractions? Absolutely. Okay? One thing guaranteed is like, they usually say, what, death and taxes are the only things guaranteed in life. I bet you we can guarantee you will make mental math errors again in the rest of your life. It's going to happen. And so with fraction questions, you have to do more mental math. So your chances of making a mental math error obviously increase just because you're doing more of it. So that also makes it a bit annoying and a bit frustrating because you're doing more of it, but not harder. Okay? And I think that's an important thing for you to realize as a math student. Some questions are going to be annoying, but you can persevere and just get through them. You're going to be fine. Okay? But you shouldn't start to think, oh, I can't do this because it has fractions. That's a lie. Yeah, I totally agree with you if you want to say it's more annoying. And I don't feel like doing it. Those are normal kind of reactions. But it's actually, you have to get to that point where you realize it's not harder. It just takes more time. And it's more annoying, guaranteed, but you can do that. Okay, questions for practice on this one are 8 and 10.